Due to a technical error, we do not have a tripod to hold this bad boy today, so I'm going to be holding it. So it's like a Paris Fashion Week video where we're running around town, except I'm here in my mom's house. We've been going to Paris Fashion Week for 2 years now. We've been to, I think, 7 Paris Fashion Weeks at this point, and we I don't know, we like have a little bit of experience with this, I feel like. Are guerrilla runways a thing? Designers pretending to be part of the scheduled shows with theirs. Okay, yeah, so like a guerrilla runway show refers to just when you just have a runway show and it's not officially on the calendar and you're doing it in a public place. No, runway shows, these are not common at all in Paris Fashion Week. The problem with these, I think logistically, is that it's like you can do them and maybe it'll look cool for like Instagram or whatever. The whole purpose of a runway show is that if you're spending enough money to make that runway show really impressive, it's like, why did we spend that money if we're not getting buyers or serious press to come to this? And in order to get buyers and serious press to come, you need to be able to just send thousands and thousands and thousands of emails within a very short period of time. And then at a certain point, maybe you look at your other people that you're working with and you go, why don't we just apply to be on the calendar and get a PR company and just do this the right way? Usually when independent brands go, it is with a showroom. Is Paris Fashion Week better than other fashion weeks? Paris Fashion Week and Milan Fashion Week are the two most notable ones as far as the lineup with the brands and stuff. London and New York, I have nothing against London nor New York. I think both of those cities are great. Their fashion weeks are a little bit less notable right now. They have a few big names per event, and other than that, there's just not a ton that's going on there right now. There are exceptions. There's great talent in both of those cities, but right now, generally, Paris and Milan are considered to be like, those are the places to show. Okay, what's one thing you genuinely deeply love about covering Paris Fashion Week? Daniela just said Orangina. There's a special kind of Orangina that's only available in Europe that we don't have in the United States. I fucking love that Orangina. It's like pulpy, but it's in a can, and it's like just this delicious artificial orange juice, but it has this incredible pulp in it, and so good over ice, which is hard to find in Europe. You have to like show them pictures. You have to Google pictures of ice and be like, do you have this? Are people sneaking into the shows that you go to? I've read tons of stories about that. Guys, okay, look, here's the deal. Sneaking into shows is, I guess it's possible. It is the hardest now that it's ever been in the history of runway shows. Fashion is a massive mainstream thing now. Back in 2007, fashion was not a mainstream thing and there was barely any security at most of these shows unless it was like Dior or something. But now, I mean, security is insane. There is security at small brands runway shows. And there is no like, convince them I'm on the list. Like, you either have a QR code or you don't have a QR code. That's just kind of how it works. Here is my advice as someone who works in the industry. If you would like to be in the industry long term, sneaking into shows is probably a really bad idea. You do not want PRs and event coordinators to remember who you are, which I've literally talked to people that this has happened to, where they snuck into a few shows or maybe like snuck into some seats in the front row that they weren't supposed to be in, and people remember that shit. And if Daniela and I were doing that at all, it would basically fuck any chance that we would have in being in this industry long term. What was the best small brand that you had the opportunity to see or try on their clothes? Okay, so I have 3 for you here. We'll do them in alphabetical order. Iray. We have covered Iray in a lot of our videos in the past. They make unbelievably high quality conceptual clothing. If you're looking for kind of an introduction to that, you should check out this video in which we interview Drew at this timestamp about his first collection, which was about Mother Teresa's House of the Dying. Drew was able to make a collection about the pain and the beauty and the just reality of lots and lots of people dying and grappling with his own mortality. If that sounds like highfalutin and pretentious to you, I don't know what to tell you. It's probably not for you, but it was so beautiful I cried. This most recent collection, I also went in there and cried. I haven't completely like congealed my thoughts on it yet, so I can't really speak on it, but we have an upcoming thing on the Patreon where we're gonna do a little mini documentary about the new Iray show, and I am so excited to sit in my chair and put on some techno and edit that video. Number 2, Kartik Kartik Research would be, yeah, Kartik Research. This guy was literally flipping Yeezys and Supreme and then was like, I want to make a really high quality brand. He has relationships with dozens of specialty artisan factories in India. There's no electricity that is used in the making of any of his textiles. Did you hear what I just said to you? There was no electricity used in the making of his textiles. If you don't know, that's fucking nuts. Nobody does that. He's also found a way to take Indian fashion, Indian traditional things, and make it where Westerners can kind of understand and want to engage with it. The craziest thing that I saw was a shirt fabric where the warp and the weft, warp and weft being like this, right? This is the warp, this is the weft, and now it's a shirt. He found a way to weave it over sequins. So in the flat surface of the cloth, there are sequins woven into the flat surface of the cloth. Fucking crazy. The other huge brand is the only brand that I'm aware of that is trying to solve fashion's sizing problem in a really serious way. There are brands like Esther Manez that are much more inclusive in their sizing, and their clothes look fantastic regardless of which size you select from them. LR3 is literally creating a new sizing system that they refer to not as sizes but as volumes. And we were able to just see some fantastic stuff from them. As far as I can tell, this looks like it might actually solve the problem where it's just kind of like, okay, I am a little bit bigger than a 14, I'm a 16, what am I supposed to do? Fashion has no answers for you. Especially when you get up into luxury fashion, there's no answers for get men's clothes. That's basically like their only solution. It seems like Louis Ruby at LR3 is actually trying to make a meaningful engineering solution to that problem, and the clothes are beautiful. I have dreams of going to Paris Fashion Week one day and possibly even doing a show. Is it worth the hype? I think what we have learned is that if you are showing up to Paris and you have rented a showroom and it's like, here I am, that will never make you any money. People are not going to come find you because you post to your story that it's like, we have a showroom, everybody come. There need to be a lot of business acquaintances of yours that are saying things like, oh, well, I wish we could just feel all these clothes in person. Are you ever in Paris? Once a dozen or so of those people have said that, that's when you say it's time to go to Paris. If you are a small brand that is operating with the extra funds from the job that you're working full time and you're kind of using that to support your brand, I don't think that is the financial time to invest in Paris yet. I'm afraid that you will throw away a lot of money and not get a lot out of it. This is not business advice. Bliss is a liberal arts major sitting on the floor of his mom's house. Any brands, this is a great question, any brands that you visited that made you yawn before seeing it, but then you got intrigued once you went? I don't know if I was yawning as in saying this sucks or whatever, but I had completely misunderstood what Hermes was all about. I mostly was walking into Hermes assuming that I was going to see, because it was a men's show, I thought it was going to be just all suits and then maybe a few sweaters with some trousers. Boy, was I completely wrong, especially once we went to the showroom for Hermes. It became abundantly clear that they are all about innovation and ultra luxurious decisions at every single point in the process. And they're often very experimental, which I was shocked at. I mean, if you want to see more, we did a whole thing about Hermes in our Paris Fashion Week coverage. Hermes is definitely the answer to that one. Are the samples of the runway shows available to go see? Okay, so the short answer to that is no, but this is a good opportunity to talk about the process of how everything kind of gets made. At every step of this, there are lots of exceptions. There are many brands that do things in radically different ways, but usually it goes that the runway show pieces, the actual stuff that goes on the models for the runway show, those are not completed manufactured clothes. Those are what's called prototypes. Some people call them runway samples. So these pieces are done up just one at a time for the runway specifically, but they are meant to be what the collection that will go to the stores is based off of. Usually those prototypes are made in-house where the designer actually is. I would say that the way that you should do that is that there should be either a designer or other people on staff that know how to put prototypes together. If it's just a room full of people in Illustrator, I don't know if that's going to be a very good company overall. So some of those people get sampling factories to make the samples for them and then send them to them. That seems silly to me, just make the prototypes in-house. But then they take all of that stuff, sometimes shipping it internationally, which I'll let you just guess how much that costs, shipping an entire fashion collection internationally, so that they can go do a runway show internationally in Paris. And they set everything up, they get the models, they do the fittings and stuff, and then they send everybody down the runway, and then those pieces are either kept in an archive, which unfortunately is very rare. They are sold to huge clients that really love the brand. They are given away. This is the silliest one, and I wish no brand would do this. They are given away sometimes to people that the brand hopes will continue to wear their stuff, hopefully on a red carpet and hopefully in a way that where they'll like shout them out or something. This strategy, I've heard from many PRs and many brand owners, this strategy very rarely works. Or they are sold as part of a sample sale because you're the Owens Corp and you're able to manufacture everything that you put onto the runway. Unfortunately, a lot of runway shows do contain garments that are not going to end up being manufactured, and I personally think that sucks. Like, if we're going to do something really crazy on the runway, that type of stuff should be, if it's at all possible, that type of stuff should be made available. That's a little more than you're asking for, but you know, we're just covering everything here. Do you prefer, great follow-up question to this, do you prefer runway shows or showrooms? Okay, so showrooms are a place where a few different things happen. As journalists, we are meant to come in here to see the showroom so that we can get a better look at the collection and maybe learn a little bit more about the details besides the things that were in the show notes. For brands like Loewe, for example, that is crucial because the stuff at Loewe it's so hard to tell from the runway what all is going on. And then you get into the showroom and you're like, oh, I see. Once you're able to touch it, you're like, oh, I get it. I get it now. Showrooms are where they get VICs to give them a lot of money. If you want to read kind of about this, you can read a just incredible article that's by Buzz Bassinger or whatever. The guy that wrote Friday Night Lights is obsessed with Gucci. And he describes a time when Gucci was like, we want you to come to the show in Milano, and they like pay for his plane ticket, and they're like, we're going to put you up in this nice hotel with the expectation that he's going to spend $20,000 there. And he did. Showrooms are also the most important time for buyers because that's when buyers actually fill out orders for what they want and how many of what they want and what sizes and all the different stuff. That is when the money actually gets made during Fashion Week is in showrooms. So do I prefer runways or showrooms? I mean, I prefer runways usually because it's like, you know, the runway is the fantasy vision of like the whole thing. It is where most of the art comes out, but sometimes showrooms are absolutely crucial for certain brands. Iray's presentation was insane and so cool. How was the quality of the actual clothes? I mean, in the Paris Fashion Week video, I described those clothes as elite, and I stand by that description. Is it easy to get tickets or to be on the list for a show? No. It's just not. Here's my deal about this. I know that a lot of people are like, I'm gonna go to some fashion shows. I'm like gonna do it. I live in Spain. I'm gonna go to Paris for the full week. Please just like go experience all of the incredible fashion things that Paris has to offer you that won't potentially shoot you down at the last minute. I have spoken to so many people who have tried to sneak in to a run with like kind of finesse their way in. And then the finessing turned out to be 2.5 hours standing out in 35 degrees Fahrenheit weather. And they're like, well, shit, that's like kind of the whole day. Where do you guys want to go for dinner? Man, I wish I had spent my day in Paris differently. There are museums that are some of the highest quality fashion museums in the world. You have some of the best shopping, even if you don't want to spend money. I never spend money in Paris shopping. Like if you just want to go to stores and like look around at stuff and just be like, wow, this is crazy. It's like I'm in a showroom for this brand. Every single piece is in here. Go to the freaking stores. They're so good. The Loewe store in Paris is excellent. The Ferragamo store, if you haven't been keeping up with Ferragamo and you have the opportunity to go to Paris, you should absolutely go to the Ferragamo store. And of course, if you are in Rome, go to the flagship. Those are like stores on like Avenue Montaigne. I recommend Leclerc all the time. That store is unbelievable. And that is a store in particular where if you do have discretionary income to be able to spend with a fashion brand, Leclerc is a place that is worth your money. They are fully independent and they have a multi-decade career of supporting small designers that really might not exist today if they hadn't supported them when they first started. Carole Christian Pole might not, I am not saying anything negative about Carole. I love Carole Christian Pole, the brand. I'm sure they would have done fine without Leclerc, but Leclerc was the first one to say, here is money. I will buy your clothes. And that is no small thing. Deep T Barth, Jeffrey B. Small, Paul Harnden. If you really love like artisanal stuff, Layer Zero. If you really love artisanal stuff, that store is one of the it's one of the greatest stores in the entire world. Trying to like get into a fashion show is like you really could just waste a whole day in Paris. And if that's what you're cool, you want to stand outside and smoke cigarettes for 3 hours, that's cool with me. And if it's cool with you too, go do it. What's your favorite croissant spot? A lot of people have a lot of differing opinions about this, and all of them are wrong because croissants suck. You know how like when you're eating a Nutri-Grain bar and you're like, I'm filthy now. Why did I eat this? I could have just eaten something different. There's lots of food options here. Why did I eat this? I love baked goods. Baked goods are the best, but no, croissants, too crumbly. I hate them. Do people dress wildly differently on the street as opposed to an average Parisian day? Yes, and I love it so much. So obviously Fashion Week people are deeply invested in just like redefining what an outfit is. Outfitology. But you'll see a lot of people out on the street where it's like, you know, I don't know how these people dress normally. It's just a lady that I'm looking at crossing the street. But it does seem like during Fashion Week, it seems like a lot of Parisian people are sort of like, I'm going to wear my special coat today because it's Fashion Week and I know I'm just going to my accounting job, but I am going to look very fashionable. And I think that is the cutest thing in the entire world. I love that shit. That is so wholesome. How spread out are all of the shows? I assume all over Paris since you're always hurrying. Yeah, that's one big factor, is that all shows do not have to be in a specific place. The brand can choose to show wherever they want. Most shows take place in the same like 5 to 7 venues that we're rushing around Paris and having to like run over to. There are lots of conflicts every single fashion season where we say like, oh, this brand is conflicting with this brand, we can only choose one. And we both like are just really, we hate having to choose between them. This is probably a good time for me to say that we want to go to every show. If you are a brand owner and or like a PR or something, and we've had to tell you no, we wanted to come. It was because we absolutely had to go to something else. I'm so sorry. I wish we could literally go to everything, but we just can't. I think on the official calendar, the shows are spaced out by an hour.
An hour to an hour and a half.
To anyone that might be trying to plan out their first Fashion Week as a journalist, 90 minutes is the right amount of time. If you have a show scheduled for 3 and a show scheduled for 4, those shows better be next door to each other because you are going to have essentially no time to travel. How do you and Daniela handle stress, if there was any? Yeah, is there any stress with this? Oh my gosh. I am really thankful that I have I mean, it's literally what our buddy said to us. I don't want to like name him because I don't know if he wants to be like talked about publicly, but we were talking to someone this week or when we were in Fashion Week last, and he was just tired of the bullshit. And I was like, dude, come on, don't quit. Like you can figure it out. Like you can do it. And he looked at me and just had such, I don't know, like such defeat in his face. And he was like, Bliss, come on. Like you have Daniela and Daniela has you. And when you guys deal with bullshit, like you're there for each other. He's like, I'm all kind of just like by myself. And I felt so bad. I felt so bad for him. I gave him a hug and stuff. And Danny's like, you like give everybody hugs. Like you're always sweet to everybody. I am really grateful to have a partner that is extremely supportive and who we can kind of like just take turns loving on each other when we really need it and saying the exact things that the other needs to hear and being able to, I don't know. I am very grateful for you. I appreciate all that you do. How are you able to focus on each show when there's so many to attend in a day at Paris Fashion Week? This is actually pretty challenging. I have been guilty of going into a show and just being so busy today that it just kind of flies by, and then I'm walking out and I'm going to the next show and I barely remember what happened. What our solution to this has been is that you're pretty good at just being aware. Like you are actually fairly good, I think, naturally about being in the moment. I am horrible about being in the moment. And so there's some show like Comme des Garçons. Every time we go to a Comme des Garçons show, because we're always in standing room, we get to our spot early so we can secure a good spot so we can get some footage. And I just do breathing exercises and I meditate while standing there in the room. And Danny kind of knows that that's sort of like quiet bliss time. And we just stand there for like 15, 20 minutes before the comb show and just are quiet and breathe. I need to be doing that more often. I wish I had a way to consistently do that, but it's hard to implement. What's your favorite invitation to a show? Okay, so my favorite one that of all time, of anything, like including ones that I haven't received, is this one that was part of an Off-White show. It's a thing. It's a robot that draws a picture, and it's been programmed to draw the Off-White logo, but it, like, because it's not heavy enough, it like scoots itself around on the table and stuff while it's writing, and just the result is just so cool. I love this thing. I would probably pick one of these up if I had the opportunity to. They're so cool. It's like they sent a robot butler, a really clumsy robot butler, to write the message for you in person. I don't know. What's the coolest invite we've ever gotten? We've gotten the Leon Emmanuel Blanc Horsetooth in a pour of resin, which was cool because he was trying to remember that it's like if we use the leather of the horse, it's important that people understand that leather products are not just a thing that you get from the getting place. They are real things that, like, a living thing had to be sacrificed in order for you to have this very useful, very practical material that will last you a long time. Oh, you know what? I think underrated, the Acris invitation. Beautiful every time. So a lot of brands try to kind of butter you up by like sending you like a little pouch or something where it's like, ooh, technically you now have a pouch by X brand. Pretty cool, right? And that is cool. That's fine. But like Acris does paper invitations, but they just have, it's just the most beautiful like arts and crafts. Like they're just so considered. Everything that brand does is, it just has this very delicate, sweet, beautiful consideration to it. From 1 to 10, how worth it is it to go to Paris Fashion Week without any connections, contacts, or plugs? 1 out of 10. It is, that will be an enormous waste of money if you do not have a reason to be there. Very simple. How do you manage transportation? Like what with the camera crew and all? Okay, so my camera crew is my wonderful wife, and she has a very small camera, is smaller than the size of a phone, is what we tell all the PRs. We're on the metro, and then when we really, really need an Uber, we jump in an Uber. That's it. There was one day during the strikes in Paris where we had to rent a driver for the whole day, and I almost vomited blood at how much that cost. I think it was $500 for the full day. I hated doing that. It also just did not help nearly as much as we thought it would. I'm not particularly jealous of the people that have their own vehicle. Yeah, every show you go to, now you're stuck. Like, because there's 80 drivers that are trying to, on this tight little Parisian street, trying to like get people. And so like, we don't even call Ubers until we've walked 2 blocks in like the cross-section direction, the perpendicular direction. Just curious, but what did your wife do when you were the only one allowed inside Hermes? My wife's name is Daniela with 2 L's, and she went inside Hermes and loved it. Showroom, Runway show. Hermes is the top most luxury brand, and they do understand that we both need to be in there in order to do our work properly. How do you schedule all the invitations to the shows? So the way that this usually works is leading up to the week, I am usually taking an enormous amount of work on video editing, and Daniela is pretty much just glued to the laptop doing hundreds. It's not an exaggeration to say hundreds of at least 300-400 emails every single fashion week. And that is, it's kind of hard to break down like why that much communication is necessary. Most of these brands, I think they're just to a point where it's like so many people request for these shows that we have to make the process of requesting difficult. And that's the only way to weed out 30% of these people, because it's just so many people asking. And so the way that you do that is you have to build relationships with people. You have to be super persistent, but not be too persistent, because you don't want to make them think that you're like breathing down their neck. It's just very complicated. Daniela's time pretty much full time 2 weeks leading up to Paris Fashion Week. That's all you're doing when we get home. And so then Daniela sets up the schedule based off of, you know, what access we did or did not get. And then we just execute on that schedule when we get to Paris. That was a lot of questions. We went a lot faster and we're maybe a little bit less nuanced than we normally am. But yeah, I really hope everybody enjoyed that. New Paris Fashion Week video is coming out soon. We have the 2-hour one that just got posted. I'm super excited to share that with you all when we come back from the next one here in a week. We leave in a week and a half. It's going to be crazy. Join the Patreon unless you a lame. See ya.